All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to welcome Colin Caissie. Colin, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me so much.
Thank you.
It's great to be here and chat about cars with you.
Yeah. Now, I just want to get right into it. You own Pinnacle Advanced Driving Academy.
Yes, I'm one of the co-owners of Pinnacle Advanced Driving Academy.
Okay.
So we're a performance driving school that does a whole bunch of stuff. But basically, our whole reason for existing is we want to introduce car people to the world of high performance driving and to a further extent, motorsports.
Right.
So our bread and butter course is an intro to performance driving. So the idea is a full day. We do it at Toronto Motorsports Park, a very safe track for beginners. So we like running it there. Mm-hmm. And the idea is you come out for a full day, you get some classroom stuff, get the theory, all those sort of things.
On the smaller development track? Or on the big one?
Sorry, this is at
Mosport?
No, at Cayuga.
Or Cayuga, sorry.
Yeah,
my
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Okay.
No worries. So at Cayuga, so we do the full track there.
Right.
It's, again, very safe for beginners. The driver development track at Motorsport is very safe as well. But we find Cayuga is a little easier for beginners to kind of climatize to because you don't have the elevation changes like DDT does.
Right.
But we have a great relationship with the owner, so that kind of works out in our favor too. And, we give him a lot of business. He helps us out and works out great.
Right.
But so we do a full day course. The idea is you get some classroom instruction in the morning, get the theory, application, things like that. And then you get to go and track for us today with an instructor, go through some very specific exercises, a little bit of open lapping at the end of the day to tie it all together. And you leave really tired and with a big smile on your face.
Right. And then hopefully knowing a lot more than what you initially came into.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's kind of the idea, especially with newbies. A lot of times, they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And that's one of the big things we kind of focus on with the beginner course.
Now, do you find that, that even though you're track oriented and focusing on performance and whatnot, do you find that after you leave that day that you'll have a lot to take home for everyday driving as well? Like, do you recommend people that are driving every day on the road to do something like this? Because just based off of my experience, I find that a lot of people don't know how to, I want to say 99% of the people don't know how to set up their mirrors or their seats.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I guess to answer that question, kind of twofold. First off, a little more in my background. So obviously I run Pinnacle. I do have a big performance driving background. I've been competing in motorsports for about 16, 17 years now, I think.
Wow.
So everything from go-karting to time attack, autocross, things like that.
Right.
But in spite of that, I've still been doing regular driver instruction as well. So for about the past, I'd say 11, 12 years, I've been doing defensive driving instruction. I also did tactical driving with the police and military.
Nice.
We've done just a whole whack of different things. The performance driving side has always been my passion, though. So that's why I built a business around that, because the other stuff was cool and you learn a lot and networking and things like that. But, getting on track and really putting all those skills to a performance application was my thing. Now, with that being said, yes, absolutely, everybody should do a performance driving course to learn how to drive in general. Because the thing I found with all the different facets of driving I've taught, at the end of the day, I'm still teaching the same thing in every course. It's just a slightly different take on it and a different application to the same basic principles, because driving is driving. It's physics, right?
Yeah.
Plain and simple, and then skills applied, and that's all it is. It's just, what do you want to do with your driving? Do you want to be safe? Do you want to save gas? Do you want to set a lap time? Do you want to, chase down bad guys? Do you want to do a pit maneuver? Whatever it is. So the idea is driving is driving. Now, the thing is with that, we do talk about that a little bit in our course. Like we say, this course is designed specifically around high performance applications. But that being said, all these skills we're going to teach you are still 100% applicable on the street. So the biggest thing we always start off with in the beginner course, and this is the most important thing you learn in performance driving and any driving for that matter, is your vision. So we do a lot of specific exercises around vision. We talk about the theory, the whys and the hows, how to actually use your eyes properly when going through corners, through traffic, all kinds of things. So everything we teach in the course, again, applies right to the street.
Right.
So yes, absolutely, everybody should be taking at least a beginner course to performance driving.
Right.
It would dramatically change the behavior of drivers on the road,
right,
just in terms of a safety element alone.
And the younger you go into it, the better it will be for you, because it's kind of hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But
Right.
yeah, to your point exactly. The sooner you learn, you get a good foundation from day one. It's great. Like we take students as young as 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So we've had 14-year-olds come out, take our course. It's quite often because their parents will take it with their cool sports car. And then they think it's the coolest thing ever. And they're like, hey, well, my son or daughter should learn how to do this stuff now they understand the street applications.
Right.
Absolutely. So we had 2 summers ago, we had a police officer come out with his brand new WRX STI.
Nice.
Came out, took our course, had a blast, thought it was cool, started doing some tracking stuff, but had so much fun in the first course. He's like, hey, my son just turned 14. Like, when can I sign him up? Like, when he's 16? And we're like, well, actually, no, our insurance allows us at 14. So you technically could bring him out now.
Wow.
So he was like, done, sign him up. So we signed up his son that day, got him out. So it was like next month, I think it was the course he signed him up for. Came out, brought the STI out again. It's a 6-speed manual.
Oh,
so
sweet.
this kid had never driven a car in his life, never driven a manual.
And the first time he did it was in an STI on a track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holy shit.
So he came out. So then, you're with an instructor all day, so that certainly helped.
Yeah,
but then, we stuck him with one of our really good instructors, and they worked with him a little bit in the standard part first in the parking lot, just getting used to that part, obviously. And then, of course, do the classroom stuff, and then went on track. And by the end of the day, he wasn't exactly setting a blistering lap time, which isn't the goal of our intro course anyway.
Right.
But the point was, he started off obviously just scared to death the first couple of sessions in the morning, understandably. But no, by the end of the day, he was very comfortable with the car. He was actually driving very good around the track, setting like a reasonable lap time for, the situation. Like it was very impressive how well he did on his first day.
Wow.
And the dad was ecstatic, right? Because he was hanging out for the day and stuff, and just seeing the progress the kid was making, and he was just floored by the end of the day what his son could do. And it was just really, really cool to see that happen, right?
Right.
But that kid's gonna have really, really good strong foundation with the basics right from day one. So when he gets his license when he's 16, he's going to be a lot safer, and he's going to know what he's doing, and it's going to be great.
Good habits, and then you respect speed, and you know what you're doing more so than just let's mat it and see what this thing can do type of thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. There's some knowledge, and that's the most important thing.
Right. Now, I'm assuming that people would bring their own cars in.
Yeah, so for our courses, most people bring their own cars.
Right.
We do have the option to rent cars to come in, like some race cars from some of our partners. That doesn't happen too often because that obviously ups the cost quite a bit.
Right.
The course itself is quite cost effective. Retails about $425. We have discounts running at different times.
That's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. For a full day, includes your lunch and everything too. So it's pretty good. But yeah, to rent the car adds a bit more. But so the average person definitely brings their own car, which we suggest anyway, because it's the car you're going to drive, to the track on your own or every day or whatever. It's your car. And every car, obviously, as I'm sure everybody knows, it has their own nuances. Every car is a little different. So, great to learn your car because that's the one you're going to be driving most of the time.
Yeah, because you're going to be nervous if you get thrown into a random car that you've never driven in your life. You don't really know the mechanisms on how it works, what goes where. And
Exactly.
I mean, especially nowadays, everything has a button for sport button, this and that, right? And
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. Now, when it comes to automotive, your entire, I don't want to say, like, your entire career is focused around automotive. So you are also a part of a new show that you just launched.
Yes, yeah. So that's Track Attack Canada is the name of the media company we launched this year. Our first show, we're planning a few of them, but the first one we have is called Track Attack. And, without mincing words, it's basically a ripoff of Top Gear, essentially. But yeah, the idea is we go on track. We do subjective review of a couple of cars, talk about why we're kind of comparing them, whether it be performance, price, whatever have you. And then we'll do some hot laps with them. We have a leaderboard, things like that. We usually do some autocross as well as a little fun extra element.
Right.
And we'll do drag races, of course.
Right.
And we just try to have fun while doing it. And the biggest thing is you want to try to impart the experience of the cars to the viewer. So, we're going to show which car's faster and all that stuff, which is the typical, everybody wants to see that. But, hopefully we come across and say, hey, like we're driving, the Porsche GT4 this season we reviewed, and I was talking a lot about the driving experience of it and how the handling is very natural and the way it rotates and all kinds of things like that, and just saying anybody can say GT4 is amazing, goes through corners well, you kind of assume that's a GT4, but hopefully in the video we talk about this is why corner's good, and this is why it's fun, and this is why maybe it's not fun or what have you, right? And this is why the engine's really cool and the transmission sucks because the gears are too long and so forth and so forth. And,
right.
We just try to have fun with it at the end of the day and do some goofy stuff. And so the first season we have 6 episodes on our channel on YouTube.
Cool.
And they've done well. I got some views. We're pretty happy with what we've done so far. But we got big plans for season 2 and lots of fun stuff coming down the pipe. And it's been a fun adventure so far.
Right. Now, what do you drive? Just so I know what a driving instructor drives, because I'm always curious to see what these guys drive. I'm assuming, I mean, daily's a daily, which we can also get into, but
Yeah.
you know, when it comes to your fun cars, I don't know how many cars you have, but we
Yeah.
can go through all of them if you want. I don't care. But I'm just curious, what makes you
Yeah.
you?
I like to think I have a bit of an interesting, collection. I think I definitely have a very unique taste when it comes to cars. I'm very, I don't know, I'm very picky and very anal. I don't have a problem expressing my opinion with cars.
I like that.
It takes a lot to impress me when it comes to a car. I think just because I'm too picky, frankly. I've been very fortunate through my job. I've gotten to driven pretty much everything under the sun and on track. So I have a good wealth of experience to draw upon. So that being said, one of my favorite cars I own, I have two of them, so I don't have a big giant fleet or anything, but one of the best things I've ever driven, which is why I own it, is the Alfa Romeo 4C. So I have a 2015 coupe. I bought that because I had a Lotus Exige before that. I had, a 260, one of the final editions.
Yeah.
And the reason I like that car is just the very raw driving experience of it all. If you've ever driven, I believe one of the episodes you'd mentioned.
I've driven it.
So it's like a go-kart on steroids, and it's a very, engaging driving experience, to say the least.
Yeah.
It's certainly the fastest thing on track, but for me, I don't care so much about that.
It's very connected.
That's
like
it.
You feel very, very connected. It's very, very raw, even though it's a Toyota engine. It's an amazing car. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I ended up selling mine at one point, and then kind of kicking myself in the butt and wanted to get one again, but that was after all the new ones were gone.
Right.
And then I looked at the used market, and that's when they started going up. So, which sucks because I sold mine right before it went up, of course. So go figure, right?
Yeah.
But then they're like going for like MSRP, like brand new price for used ones, and then sometimes even more.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm not paying that much for one of those. Like I refuse to.
Mm-hmm.
So hunted around for a couple of years, and then couldn't really find one that sort of worked for my budget. So I eventually was going to try and look at a used Vor S, because still Lotus, not quite as raw.
Yeah.
But I driven them obviously, and still a really engaging experience.
Right.
Still Lotus, right?
The clutch is very, very low on those. I mean, at least the one that I drove, it just like it engages like this. Like if you don't grab it right away, you'll stall it.
Yeah, absolutely. But so it's funny. So I was thinking, okay, fine, I'll kind of compromise and go check out one of those. I was driving down to Oakville to go look at a used one day, and I drove by the Alfa Romeo lot on the way there, and kind of was thinking, geez, I've never driven a 4C yet. They just come out. And I remember I always thought they're really cool because they're like very much like the Elise Exige sort of thing. And but I don't know, for some reason the numbers on paper never really grabbed me. Like I just thinking, well, it's not quite as light as the Exige, and the power is so, and it's got a turbo motor, and it's just, I don't know, but then I'm thinking, hey, like I've never driven one. Let's just go in and see if I can sneak a test drive on one, So I pull in, go to the dealership. Sales guy approaches me. He's really nice and friendly. So I'm saying, hey, thinking of looking at a 4C. Have a sports car track background, and this car kind of appeals to me. And I'm sitting there just, no intention of buying one because I'm just shooting the shit and just trying to get a test drive just for fun. And so I'm talking to the guy for maybe a minute. And then I think I'd mentioned something about I'd come from a Lotus Exige. And the guy goes, holy cow, you used to own a Lotus and you're one? You have to drive the 4C and tell me how it compares. I'm thinking, well, that was easy, right? Like, done. Because the 4C is so rare and stuff. I'm thinking they're probably not going to test drive it, right?
Right.
But anyway, yeah. So like a minute in, then the guy's like, oh, let's go grab one for a test drive. And I'm thinking like, so are we going to talk numbers? Like what are we doing here? This is weird. But anyway, so we take one for a spin, and I swear to God, 30 seconds in the test drive, I'm going, holy crap, I'm going to buy this car.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like it was just so much better than I anticipated.
Now, what stood out? After 30 seconds, which hard to find a car that you'll just have all the check marks go off.
Yeah. Well, I guess the short answer, it was just so much like the Lotus Exige, like in terms of so raw, so pure, because it has pure rack and pinion steering right off the bat. Like you can't find that in a modern car besides the Lotus.
Right.
So that obviously, you feel every pebble in the road. You're very low. It's a very light chassis with the carbon tub and everything. So it just felt very much like the Exige, but it had like that little bit of a supercar flair to it. Right. The inside's actually nice. The Exige, it's like bare metal. It looks like a race car. And the build quality's garbage, and like, it stalls at lights, and like it's ridiculous, right? Where this thing actually was like a nice car. Like you could still kind of drive it around, and had a nice interior, and the outside looked all sexy and Italian. And I'm thinking like, and then the engine was, pretty peppy for stock, like especially because the torque that the Exige doesn't have. And then the other thing too was I didn't want the 4C because it had the dual clutch, and I wanted a manual. Every sports car I've ever owned in my life was a manual.
Same. Yeah.
But that being said, the dual clutch in the 4C is surprisingly good, even on the street. So that surprised me too, like how nice it drove and it was smooth and, you know.
Like PDK, like Porsche, because everyone compares to the PDK, right?
Exactly. It's not as good as a Porsche because nothing is.
Right.
But that being said, it was still way better than I anticipated. Like, it drove nice. And then obviously after I bought it, went on track, it's really, really good too. But yeah, it was just so much like the Exige, but like in a sexier package, right? So I'm just like, holy crap, like this is what I've been looking for.
Right.
So, and then, you know, the tuning potential is a little better than the Exige too, because you got a turbo motor, you have a better chassis, obviously. So I was like, cool. So we go back to the dealer, start talking numbers, and there's one sitting in the showroom that's spec'd exactly how I'd want it. And the guy's kind of like, yeah, this is a 15, you know, it's like last year's model, and we're trying to get rid of it, like give you a good deal. And I'm like, okay, what can you do? And talk some numbers, and it was a really good price for what it was. And I'm thinking like, geez, like this is too good to be true. So the guy, of course, you know, signed papers today. I'm like, no, like I always take a day to buy like $100,000 car. I'm not buying it on the spot, right?
Right.
But then, yeah, sure enough, I went home and like I woke up in the morning and like all I could think about was that car. So I just called him up and said, screw it, I'm coming down today. I'll put some money on it. Let's just sign the deal. It's, you know,
right.
And I bought it and never regretted it. It was just, you know, fantastic driving experience. It's just every single time you drive it, it just puts a smile on your face.
Really?
Unlike other cars do, because it's so raw, it's so pure. Even mine, I have an aftermarket intake on mine, for example, a couple of small mods on it. And just the intake alone, the turbo noises it makes is just bonkers.
Really?
Oh, it's insane. Yeah, like it sounds like there's like a tornado in the car when you give it boost. It's the coolest thing ever. And then, you know, the exhaust is great from the factory.
So it's quirky as well.
Oh, extremely. Yeah. And very much like Lotus, you have to crawl down into it and get over the sill. Like it's the same thing. You got to crawl out, look like an idiot. It's great.
Yeah.
And then the trunk space, you can fit a duffel bag in the back, and that's it. There's no front trunk. Like it's just such a weird, impractical, special car. I love it.
No, I have to ask the question just because I hear consistently. I've never driven an Alpha, but I always hear about mechanical issues and whatnot. So I have to touch on it.
Yeah, that always comes up.
What is it like?
So this is the funny thing. I'll give you a bit of context before I even answer the question. So mine's a 15. I've had it since brand new.
Right.
I have about 76,000 kilometers in mine. I think
Wow,
mine's the
you
highest
drive it.
kilometer one in Canada, I believe.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah,
Good for you.
That's why I bought it. Like it's not a trailer.
Yeah.
And most of those kilometers are on track or autocross or doing something performance driving.
Right.
So it's had the living snot beaten out of it.
Good.
That being said, I've never had a real issue with it aside from a turbo hose popping off and you just clamp it back on, you're done.
Wow.
That's about the worst I've had. Well, actually, that's a lie. And then my factory blow-off valve did let go 2 years ago now, I think. And that was a very cheap, easy fix.
That's impressive, though.
That's it.
That's impressive for you beating the crap out of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Tracking.
Absolutely.
Like most of those miles being tracked and then just nothing.
Yeah.
And I find
nobody's
that
more surprised than me, trust me.
Well, it's weird because I find that for performance cars, if you drive the crap out of it, they're more reliable than if you just drive it like a hybrid type of thing, like a Prius.
Yeah, they're kind of meant to be driven, yeah.
Right. And if you're not, you know, it's like Usain Bolt not running ever, just going for a daily walk. It's just something doesn't really add up to that.
That's it, right? So yeah, no, fingers crossed. It's been really good. I have like a mild tune on it, intake and exhaust now, and some wheels and tires. So it's not heavily modified, but even in spite of that, like I said, everything's held up beautifully. So yeah, no complaints. Like I said, it's been worth every penny I've spent on it. It's been
nice.
Awesome. Yeah.
Did you time it on Cayuga?
Yeah, I have lap times all over the place with it and stuff.
What's your best for now?
At Cayuga, my best is what I got. 119.7, I think, is the best with it right now.
119.7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fast.
It's not bad. Yeah. I mean, like the car doesn't make a lot of power, but it's really light. So obviously it's not too bad down the street.
Well, you have a lot of corners. Cayuga is a track with a lot of corners and only one massive straight. So
that's exactly it.
You need a car that'll corner, because if you have like something like a Vet, you're just going to go squirrely if you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to use the power at Cayuga, and you don't get a ton of gains with it either. So yeah, the 4C does well there.
Right.
My favorite track is DDT with the 4C because it's such a flowing track that, and again, there's like no straightaways there. So the 4C is just awesome there. You can keep up to supercars all day because you just all corners.
Yeah.
You go to the big track with the 4C, and then it's like...
It can get scary.
Yeah, it's down the straightaway. You're just getting passed by everything. It's crazy, right?
Right.
But it's just the fun factor of that car is what appealed to me. So it was great.
Right. And then what's the next car? You see you have two?
Yeah. So the other car is the exact opposite end of the spectrum. Matter of fact, I just picked it up a few weeks ago. So I got a 2019 Camaro ZL1 1LE.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, which is obviously,
stiff as a pogo stick.
Yeah, and a big, heavy muscle car essentially. But in that route, because I figured I already have the experience car, I wanted something that I could go like set blistering lap times in and go have fun doing that. So yeah, so I picked up one of those recently. Got a 19 with like 7,000 kilometers and got a sick deal on it, and it's like brand new. So yeah, it's sitting in storage right now. Just I'm dying to get it out in the spring and have some fun with it.
And they only come in stick, right?
Until the 2020, I believe you can get the new 10-speed auto.
Right.
But yeah, for all the first couple of years, it was a 6-speed. Mine's a 6-speed as well, because again, given the option.
Yeah, that was the car that changed my view on American cars, because I drove a Viper. I drove an old, I think it was a C5 Vet. I can't remember, but they were too squirrely. Too much torque. I just couldn't handle the power. Yeah. Also, I was very, very young at the time. But then when I drove, I think it was a 2014, 2015 ZL1 1LE. Yeah. My friend said, take this on-ramp doing 120. And I'm like, no. Yeah. I'm going to go into a wall. He's like, no. Trust me, do it. And then I did it doing 140. Yeah. Which blew my mind. But then again, you have like 315s on the rear, and it's just terribly well balanced. Yeah. And then the no lift shift aspect, that blew my mind. I've never known that a car could actually even do that. So it's really cool. And and obviously that's the 5th generation Camaro. Mine is the 6th generation, which honestly is a big leap even from that one. Like the performance is still like a huge step from that one even. Right. And I mean, yeah, it's amazing. Like, because when we were younger, the domestics were great straight line cars, but road course, you're like, yeah, whatever, buddy. You and your Mustangs and stuff, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing. Like last like decade, and especially last 5 years, like there's some crazy stuff coming out, like GM and Ford and all kinds of stuff. I mean, yeah, they really stepped it up. I mean, for me, it's a 350R. That's I can't stop talking about it, and I hate the fact that I love it, because I'm not a fan of Mustangs at all. But it's the engine. The engine of that car is magic, right? Yeah. Yeah. The engine, but you know what? It's got the right seats, the right shifter. It's very, very, for a modern car, it's analog. It's weird. It's not bad for a driver's car, I have to say, because I was contemplating doing a 350R instead of the Camaro. Right. It's just bang for the buck. The Camaro was just the better buy. Like, it's cheaper and it's way faster. Right. But that being said, I was really torn, because like I've driven the R's and the regular 350s a lot in track, and it's the engine. It's just like, I love that engine to death. And it's naturally aspirated, which blows my mind. Exactly. And it's just like the Ford GT3 in that sense, the high revving engine. And yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, like I said, so I was kind of torn for a bit, like which one to get, and I was looking at both of them for a few months, and yeah, again, like you can't go wrong with the other one, put it that way. They're both amazing on track. You're going to have a lot of fun, and they're fast. Like they put down really good lap times. Oh, I know. Yeah, especially for the money. Like it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, anybody who has one, they're lucky. Are you planning on replacing the 4C anytime soon? No, the plan was, like when I bought that, was to keep it, because like you're never really going to see anything like that again, unless you're going to spend like obscene amounts of money for like an Atom or something ridiculous, right? Yeah. But yeah, like I mean, to have a carbon tub little mini sort of supercar, it's like it doesn't exist anymore, right? So I plan on keeping it as long as I can, for sure, because it's just very special, and it's one of those cars too. It's awesome. You drive around in it, and like nobody knows what it is unless they're a real car guy. Everybody's like, "Oh, is that a Lotus? Oh, is that a Ferrari?" And and then people. I'm assuming it's red. It's red, yeah. Okay, it has to be. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's nuts. Like people walk up and they're like, "Oh, is that a Ferrari? Is that like a $500,000 car?" And you're like, "Sure, right. Yeah, cool. If you think that, I'll go with that, right?" Like you kind of live that cheater's supercar lifestyle on a budget, right? So yeah, it's fun, right? That's crazy. Now when both of those cars corner very well, so I'm assuming that you're a guy that prefers cornering versus straight line power. Yeah. Like I'm all about the road course stuff. I actually started my motorsports career as a teenager doing drag racing. Did that a little bit competitively for a couple of years. Oh, wow. When I was younger, then it wasn't horsepower and stuff like that. Like in like a Fox body Mustang type of thing, or? No, I was import even then. So I had like some MR2s. I had a Super Turbo. I had you had a Super Turbo, nice. A 3rd gen turbo, yeah, and I modded it and stuff, and was running like mid-low 13s back in the day, which back then was like ridiculously fast. Nowadays it's like a family sedan. But back then I was just like, whoa, I'm running 13s, I'm so fast. And I used to compete against the Mustangs, and and that's when the import scene was kind of starting to come around. The Mustang guys were like, oh, you're in an import, you can't beat me, And the Civics, unless you spent a ton of money, you usually couldn't. But with the Supra, it didn't take much in mods to keep up or pass the Mustang, so it was kind of fun to be that kind of underdog at the time. And but I did that for a couple of years, and the problem was I found it got boring quick, because you master your launch, you don't miss a shift, the car runs your time, you're done. I just felt it just wasn't challenging enough, I guess. I don't know, wasn't enough room for growth. So then a few years later, a friend of mine introduced me to autocross, and did one event, and I was hooked ever since. And then started doing that and karting and everything else under the sun, and
it's been a fun journey ever since, right?
Now, since you've done dragging, I want to touch on that because I was actually hoping to touch on this with another friend of mine, but since you've done it professionally, I thought I'd ask you, the common misconception when you go dragging is green light, floor it, and off we go.
Yeah.
But we know that that's definitely not the case.
There's a bit more to it than that.
A lot more. So
yeah.
How would you best describe that process? Just in case, just so people are aware, because that's the thing. It's nice to learn something.
Yeah.
Right. And I find that a lot of people think, drag racing, you just floor it and go. No, by the time your mind, I said this before, I don't know how I said it, but by the time your mind registers the green light, and then by the time you tell your foot to go, you've lost the race. You've lost a lot of time because even though it's, tenths of a second, it's still a lot of time lost. So do you go on the third light before the green, the third yellow before the green, or how do you do it? Or, tell me.
Yeah, no, good question. So, there's two ways to look at it. Obviously, driver and car, like any form of motorsport, of course.
Right.
So, in drag racing, at the end of the day, and that's what made me bored about it, was it's more in the car than the driver, in my opinion. But that being said, in terms of the driver, it's all about the launch, right? Like your launch is everything in drag racing. After that, you have to get your shifts right if you're not driving an automatic, but the hard part is the launch. So, like you had mentioned, the timing is everything. So if you're going to get the perfect launch, you have to obviously kind of anticipate the green light and kind of jump on it so you're on it at the green, not react when you see it. Because like you said, like tenths in drag racing are eternity, right? Like a tenth is everything in any form of motorsport, frankly. Yeah. So yeah, if you're going to run an 11.5 or a 12 flat, that's a big gap on the straight, and your launch can easily make that difference. Yeah. And then some. So I never really had like a specific timing of the light. So anytime I'd try a different car, I would have to sort of learn the car. Right. Just like in road course driving, every car is different. So, every car would hook a little differently at the line. Every car would, kind of jump a little quicker, a little harder, a little less, whatever. So, because you can't just floor it either if you have a lot of horsepower, for example. Good examples like the Camaro I purchased. You can't just floor that off the line, unless you're running drag radials and you have a prepped surface and so forth. But on the street tires, you can't just mat it, right? Right. You'll light the tires up off the line.
You gotta ease into it.
Yeah. So it's about, kind of finding the right RPM to launch it at. How hard do you launch it off the line? Like, do you kind of slip the clutch a hair? Do you just dump it? Like what do you do? Because that matters too. And then from there, again, how quickly can you get to full throttle? Because again, you can't just mat it because you light the tires up, but you want to get to full throttle as soon as possible, obviously. So, that process and feeling the grip and learning how fast you can do it. Every run changes. Every day the track's different. So you really have to start to learn how to be very, aware and read the track, read the car that day, that, even the air temperature changes your drag runs every time. So there's a lot of variables at play. So I know I tried to really understand the variables back then, like what does affect your times? Like, is it tires? Is it temperature? Is it humidity? So forth, so forth. Literally. And then you got to start figuring out how to, one by one systematically figure out those variables throughout the day whenever you go compete. And, that's something I used to sort of focus on heavily when I drag race more than anything. Because once the car is kind of set up and running, the car is the car, right? Now it's like, what can you do with that car? And that's what it comes down to. So, whenever you look at pro drag racing and everybody's like, oh yeah, exactly, you just go up and floor, it's not a skill. I'd argue it's definitely a lot easier than road racing, which is why I kind of got bored of it. But that being said, like the guys who are good at it, like they're good at it. And they will beat the average Joe who shows up all day, every day without even trying, right? Off the line and putting down successful times and things like that. Because that's a funny thing I always find, we even run into this quite often with our show Track Attack and, being in the world of performance driving, you hear this all the time that, you pick any car, like, I don't know, a Porsche GT3 and they go, well, Motor Trend says the GT3 runs X amount of time in the quarter mile. Therefore, that's what that car runs consistently under any condition, drag strip, street, doesn't matter. And you're like, dude, that's not how that works, right? Like if Motor Trend recorded that time, you know how they did that? Like they did a whole bunch of runs, right? And they played with tire pressures, they did a bunch of stuff, and that's usually the best run they did. Some publications will use an average. A lot of them will actually pick the best. So for example, maybe we'll run 10 runs in this car throughout the day and we'll play with tire pressures and try different things, obviously, and try to get the best time we can. But then, times could vary anywhere from call it 12 flat to 11.2, right? Based on how we're learning the car, how the setup was set up, whatever. So I'm not going to publish the 12.0 time. I'm going to publish, yep, this car runs in 11.2. But the thing is, it took, a professional driver 10 attempts with a crew set in the car up to get to that time. So the average guy is not going to buy his GT3, pull up beside a guy at the light and go, well, my car runs 11.3, yours runs 11.8. Therefore, I'm going to beat you at this traffic light. No, that's not how it works. Not even close. I remember back when I used to work with Thomas at Throttle House, when we used to, do drag races. It was fun. We did one of the best episodes we did, of course, I think has like tons of views now. It's a couple million views, was the Dodge Demon episode. So we did Dodge Demon versus BMW M5 competition.
Oh.
So typical thing, we did drag racing, road course, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Demon was a hoot, I got to say, to drive around road course though. Like that was,
really?
It was on the drag radials like from the factory.
Right,
so that
right.
thing, it's not a road course tire at all.
No.
So it was like driving a waterbed through the corners. Like it was so wallowy and it was just,
Well,
so
it's
much power.
It's an FCA product.
Yeah. So, but.
Well, sorry. So is the Alpha, but I'm talking, it's a Chrysler product. Let's just say that.
True.
Yeah.
But then so the funny thing is, quarter mile time, let's face it, they aren't super far off because the Demon runs like, was it like low 10s, I think, factory. And then the M5, I think, is supposed to be high 11, or sorry, low 11, high 10, I think, or something like that.
F90, like the new M5.
The new one.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So, in theory, the Demon should win. But what we did is we always did our drag racing on the one straightaway, like on the racetrack, not the drag strip.
Right.
Because, if you want to look up like published times in these cars, they're everywhere on the internet. It's not hard to find. So we're like, well, what happens if you roll up to a guy at a traffic light on the street with street pressures, you don't heat your tires? Like this is a real world scenario.
Right. Because if for those who don't know, you step outside of your car on a drag strip, your shoes are sticking to the ground.
Yeah.
So that's why this is a big difference. I just
Absolutely.
thought I'd note that.
No, absolutely. It's good you mentioned that. Yes, exactly. The launch, box there at the drag strip is prepped, right? It's got like a sticky stuff on it. It's a different type of pavement and concrete sort of stuff. And it's made to be super sticky. Nowhere in the street you're ever going to come close to that amount of traction.
No.
So, we did a bunch of races down the straightaway, and the M5 is all-wheel drive, and running street tires and street pressures. And man, like that thing just launches so hard in launch mode. Where the Demon, I mean, street pressures too, right? Like on these giant squishy saddle tires, like, and then no heating the tires prior. We'd always try to do a bit of cool down between each session to kind of make it more,
like more balanced.
Yeah. And like I was spinning the tires all the way to the finish line on the Demon, just trying to find traction, right? Like just trying to keep up to the M5, because the M5 pulls like 7 car lengths off the line instantly, and you're just spinning the tires trying to get the car
just
moving.
fishtailing, trying to hook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was cool. We have a drone shot, I remember, like following the drag race, and you could literally see 2 strips behind the Demon as it wiggled all the way down the straight. And the reason we did that is because I tried like less throttle, more throttle, and a bunch of tries, and we found the best way was to get just a hint of wheel spin the whole way down, and that was the closest race I could get to the M5.
Wow.
So I had to get a little bit of wheel spin to kind of get it moving, but like I'm trying to get full throttle, at different points. And at no point could I go full throttle. And I mean, by the time we crossed the line, it wasn't a full quarter mile because we were using a straightaway. Not that it would have mattered in that case, but I was probably doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 200K, I'm guessing, somewhere around there. I didn't
From a
look at the
dig,
speedo.
not a roll.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe on 180, 200, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
And like I said, you're still spinning the tires a bit if you mat it. It was awesome.
How does
So
it break though? Because I know
It was terrible.
really.
Oh, it was legit scary. The only car I think I've really been scared at lapping, because like obviously it's got just stupid amounts of power. But remember, on the Demon, they actually undersized the brakes from the regular car because weight savings. And drag race, you don't have to have crazy brakes. You get the giant runoff at the end of the strip.
As we're at Cayuga, you just have a massive hill at
Yep.
the end of the track.
Yep. Well, so I remember in the morning, we went and shot, I think, the drag races first, if I remember correctly. So we do that in the second straightaway there. So we kind of assembled in the pit, got our stuff going. And they're like, hey, let's move out to the second strip and set up the cameras and everything. Let's start filming. So I hopped in the Demon to drive it out there. And one of my friends hops in with me. And, I just kind of mat it down the straightaway for a bit. And I probably braked like halfway down the straightaway because like I'm not going for a lap yet. So I figured we'd floor it for a couple seconds sort of thing, and then brake and, go through the corner and park the car. So I start braking, and like I'm on the pedal's firm, but there's just like no bite because the brakes are not big enough. So the car's slowing down, but I mean, I'm going...
It's not slowing down fast enough.
Yeah. So all of a sudden I'm going, holy shit, I don't know if I'm going to make the corner. Like I'm thinking I'm going to write this thing off before the filming day even starts because I'm just being goofy. I'm like, oh my God. But then, sure enough, the car did stop in time. He made the corner, but I'm thinking like, these brakes suck. Like they don't slow the car down. And I'm going, this thing has like 850 horsepower pretty much. And the brakes are like on like a Civic DX kind of thing. I'm like, wow. Like, so I'm seriously sitting there. I'm sitting with my friend going like, I don't know what I'm going to do, man. Like lapping this today. Like this thing doesn't slow down.
Yeah,
like,
because
what
you're
am I
driving
gonna
with
do?
2 feet, right?
Yeah. So I don't know what to do. So I'm like, well, again, it's my job. I'll figure something out. And then, yeah, sure enough, first couple laps, I'm like pooping my pants, go around the track going like, like you get down the straightaway, just ridiculous speeds in this thing, but it won't slow down. So like, you're totally just reevaluating your braking points, which you do in every car, but this thing's like, 3 million feet closer to the corner. Like, it was crazy.
Wow.
It was an experience, to say the least. It was
Wow.
interesting. Yeah.
And so now going from dragging, you were going to touch on autocross.
Yep.
So how was that? Where were we going there?
So with autocross, basically, that's why I started my my motorsports career, really. I had a Celica GTS at the time, 2002, I believe.
I'm loving all these Japanese cars, by the way. I'm a big Japanese fan.
Yeah, me too.
So.
Most of my cars have been Toyotas and things like that, so it's been great.
Good.
So I had the same cars as my buddy. He had a couple of basic mods to it, suspension, tires, and stuff, but more or less same car. And he was doing really well autocross at the time, winning some championships and stuff, and it was kind of a big thing.
Right.
So one day it's kind of like, hey, come check it out. I'm like, yeah, sounds like fun. So I come out to the event, just watch him, and at first I'm seeing a bunch of cars driving this parking lot and dodging cones, and I'm thinking, this is stupid. I was like some street racing king at the time and doing well in drag racing, all kinds of stuff. And, I'm just like, oh, I was just dumb. I'd beat them all. And my buddy's like winning the events and stuff with his car, and he was a very talented driver, which, I thought I was at the time too, but found out pretty quickly I wasn't. But then, so he's like, hey, you want to ride shotgun for a run? I'm like, oh, you can do that? He's like, yeah. Cool, this be cool. And I'm thinking like, it'd be interesting, right? Like, see what this guy can do, and go 20 kilometers an hour around pylons. So hop in, he launches the car. We're going through the first little section, and kind of thinking, geez, we're going kind of quick. I'm like, didn't feel that quick from the outside, but I'm like, okay. And up to like the real first kind of sharp corner, and there's like the edge of the parking lot not too far behind it where the curbing is, and we're coming up to the corner. And I'm thinking, he's not hitting the brakes. And we're flooring it towards this corner. It's a sharp corner, and I'm thinking, wow, like, there's no way he can stop now. We're too close to the corner. We're going fast. I'm like, well, we're just going to blow this corner, and we're going to ramp that curb, and he's going to damage his car. But I'm like, we'll be safe. Like, it's, whatever. But I'm thinking, not my car. And he just dabs the brake, just hucks the car in just beautifully, perfect skill. And just car rotates through and just rips through the corner. And he's already back on the gas before I even know what's happening. And we're speeding towards the next corner. And I'm sitting there going like, what just happened there? Like in my mind, he just defied the laws of physics. I don't know how this happened. And the rest of the run was even worse, like, because he's picking up speed and just, just handling this car like a pro. And we come across the line, and I'm like going, I don't understand what just happened. Like, I'm out of my element. Like,
that was magic.
Yeah. And I'm going, this is a freaking Celica. This isn't like some supercar or something. I'm like, wow. And I think he set one of the best times at the event that day. And so he was like, oh yeah, next event, bring your car out and come try it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm a good driver, and I have the same car as him, like not running our comp tires, but I'm like, whatever. Like, So sure enough, I sign up, come out the next day. I'm kind of nervous, but feeling pretty confident because, I think I'm good. And sure enough, by the end of the day, like, this would have been, 70, 80 competitors back then at this event. And there's different classing, of course.
Right.
If I remember correctly, I think, regardless of classing, I think I was the slowest car of the day.
Wow.
I think I was, yeah. And I remember sitting there going, like, I don't understand. Like, I had mods to my car, I'd like some horsepower to the wheels, I had dyno tuned, like, I'm like, I got a fast car. And yeah, like, little stock Miatas were just crushing me. They're like, like 7-8 seconds ahead of me, like on autocross course. That's insane. So I remember leaving that day just trying to figure out like what happened, like what's wrong. Like I couldn't figure out what happened. I was just like dumbfounded. So I went home. I couldn't sleep that night because I was just like, I don't get it. I signed up for another event thinking, okay, just drive faster. Like, that was my solution. Drive faster. Like, I just didn't drive fast enough.
And then you were hitting cones.
Oh yeah, brutal. Like, I was worse. I was even worse that day. Exactly. Because I'm overdriving the car, and I'm just doing stupid stuff. And then I'm like, wow. So next event I signed up because I'm thinking like, I'm just too stubborn to give up. And I think one of the senior guys throughout the day, one of the pro drivers, been there a while, goes, hey, I see a new guy coming out, blah blah blah. I was a really friendly guy. So he says to me like, hey, like, do you want me to sit with you and give you some pointers? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool, man, because like, you're doing better than I am, so I got to figure out what's going on here. So of course he sat with me and said, do this, try this, blah blah blah, vision that. And then sure enough, throughout the day, I actually got quite a bit better, right? And I think I was like second last maybe or something like that. I don't know. And then I started going, wow, like, there's more to this driving than I thought there was. So, every event I kept getting pointers from the good drivers, and they kept helping me. And by the end of the season, I'd made a big improvement, and I wasn't last anymore, and was starting to see some progress, and started taking some courses and stuff after that. And and then it really got fun once I started learning how to actually drive. And the big takeaway from that I realized was like, unless you've actually taken some sort of like high performance driver education, you don't know what you don't know. Right? Like I said earlier. And that's the thing. Everybody goes, yeah, I know what I don't know. And I'm going, yeah, I thought that too, because again, I was doing all the Fast and Furious street racing back then. I was doing drag racing, and I was winning stuff. I was like winning money, and like, I was doing well. Yeah. So I figured I know how to drive, right? Nope, didn't have a clue. I did not have a clue. And I only realized that once I got exposed to that world. If you've never been exposed to it, you don't get it. You know, and at autocross, we see this quite regularly where, you know, it's a great event because it's super low cost, low barrier of entry, best way to start motorsports for anybody. It doesn't matter the car you have, you can still be fast. Like I said, I've seen guys that almost stalk me out as winning events. And then there's guys in supercars who can win events. Like, you know, it's cool. It's really down to the driver. But yeah, the neat thing is like you really learn a lot about driving and your car. You know, but you don't understand that until you come out and try it, because we always see new guys every event come out, you know, and sometimes you get guys who are a little bit cocky, you know, they'll show up in a modded Mustang or, you know, whatever, right? And they're like, oh yeah, this is stupid, I'll come out, do an event and beat everybody for fun. And then, you know, they always just get annihilated by the guys who've done this for a while. And, you know, some of them come back a little humble next event and want help, and some of them, you never see them again, right? But the thing they all share is none of them understood what it was about until they did it, right?
Right.
And that's why, you know, we do what we do, is we want to introduce people to that world in a fun, friendly manner, right? And, you know, we always say with Pinnacle, you know, the acronym is PATA for the company, you know, Pinnacle Advanced Driving Academy. So we always say that once you take our course, you're part of the PATA family. Like you're with us for your car life now. Like we're part of your family. We're going to be there with you. We're going to keep coaching you. We're going to keep helping you. We're going to introduce you to, you know, all our friends and our partners and all the businesses we work with and all the events. And, you know, like you're part of our group now, right? So come out, have fun with us, you know, and we're all going to do this together and grow and learn together. And, you know, and that's the fun part of this, right? When you do it with friends. But yeah, and that's kind of what I think autocross is really cool about, because it is that very easy entry into that world, right?
Right.
And obviously, I mean, you know, like obviously everybody watching this, I'm sure, is a car person, and you are obviously, you know, we are all part of this really neat community, and we're all friends and family because of the car element. It unites us all, right? And motorsports is just a smaller subsection of that, essentially. Right. But the exact same thing, right? So yeah, and that's what makes it so cool, I think, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know what? It's hard to tie communities together, but for some weird reason, car communities, they grow and they grow quickly, especially if it's local. And when it comes to when it comes to autocrossing, tracking, correct me if I'm wrong, or I mean, question without a question, do you think tires are probably the most important part of the vehicle, aside from power, aside from a turbo system, supercharger, whatever you've done to the car? The first mod you should do, if you are modding, is tires / brakes. Yeah. In your case with the Demon.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're running a lot of power, make sure you have good brakes. But I mean, for me, I found through my experiences that, you know, tires were big. They were key, because if you have some third party shitty Korean type of tires that just don't necessarily hook, you're going to have a bad day. And not only have a bad day in such a way that you're going to lose, you might kind of get a little squirrely where you can't control the car.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, really good point, actually. I mentioned that. And my opinion, if you're going to track a car for any reason, to kind of start off generally, I think brakes should be the first thing you should address. Because let's face it, you know, your average normal like family car, the brakes are going to die in a couple laps. We know that. They aren't made to be put under that kind of strain. You know, they don't have the heat dissipation. They don't have the stopping power. Even the fluid in it isn't up to task, and so forth and so forth.
Or even the rotors.
100%. Yeah. Like the whole system is not designed for that kind of abuse. Like I say, you bring your mom and dad's Toyota Camry out, or your own Camry, like it's not going to survive very long on the track. So yeah, so braking system, but usually, you know what, a good pad, some lines and fluid is usually all you have to do initially, and that's a very small investment. You don't have to spend a lot of money. And then the car is usually going to be okay, generally speaking, for short sessions. You can go out and have fun with it. In terms of the tire question, it depends. If you are trying to set lap times be competitive, yes, tire is so important.
I'm talking about everyday car that you enjoy during the summer, but you'll take it to the track sometimes. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like an everyday type of scenario.
Yep. Honestly, tires aren't important for learning. In fact, a less grippy tire is better for learning, not for lap times, but for learning, because you can reach the limit of that tire at a lower speed and much easier than you can at a grippy tire. Because the whole point is, it doesn't matter how fast you drive a car, it's learning how our car drives at its limits. Right. Like, for example, a funny example actually is like my Alfa Romeo 4C and the Camaro ZL11LE. Obviously, I have lots of experience in the 4C. I haven't driven my personal Camaro on track yet, but I've driven lots of clients, and we did episodes on them and stuff, so I have a lot of experience in it. The funny thing is, the 4C has like a lower limit in terms of lap time than the Camaro, obviously, but the 4C is a way harder car to drive at 10/10 than the Camaro is, right? And regardless of tires or anything, but just because the dynamics of that vehicle, it's short wheelbase, mid-engine.
It's a tiny little car.
Exactly. The Camaro's a big boat, right? And it's designed differently. It's got better suspension, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So The point is, though, that, once you understand how a car drives at its limits, the limits don't matter too much. I mean, they do, but,
as long as you don't cross them, obviously.
Exactly, right?
It, yeah.
But the point is, to get that limit, you don't want to have to be going 150 through a corner, because as you're learning, you'll make mistakes. You make a mistake at 150 and lose the car, bad things happen. You're going through a corner at 75 and you lose it, less likely bad things are going to happen. So, in fact, with our courses, we always encourage people, if you're a newbie, come in, if your car doesn't already have a good braking system and things, upgrade the brakes so I'm not going to die on track. But other than that, no, keep the street tires, right? Because they'll last longer than a track tire too in terms of tread wear, so you get more life out of them. But it's good because, like I said, you'll slide around some more, you'll learn a lot more. You learn how the car behaves at that limit. You know how to understand. We start working on understeer, oversteer, car balance, all kinds of different elements that the shittier tires will help you learn on better, right? Because quite often you'll see a guy going, hey, you know what? I want to start doing lapping events or motorsports or whatever. And when we get clients, we'll sign up. So I want to start doing this. So I bought this Corvette Z06. I all of a sudden, I did supercharger upgrade. I did this. I did tires, suspension. So come teach me. And I'm like, I can, but you understand, like, you've never been on track in your life, right? So you have no idea what a car's like at its limits. And then you have this 700 wheel horsepower Z06 with R comps and super stiff suspension. I'm like, your learning curve is going to be ridiculous in this car. Like this car is going to kill you. Like,
let me teach you how to fly a plane. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you've never flown.
Literally. Yeah. Like, I can teach you, but it's way harder for you to learn in this package versus go get a stock Miata, man. And like, your learning curve is going to be through the roof. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to pick up stuff so quick because you're not going to be intimidated by the monster you're driving. So you can push a bit more comfortably and you're going to learn a lot more in the process. And you can achieve the limits at a lower limit. So you can go, oh, that's what oversteer feels like. And I can correct it because I'm going 60K. I'm not riding 150th this corner on race suspension and tires. And especially in our comp, like when you hit that limit of grip, like it's a hard line. Like you have grip, you have no grip, right? So to learn with that is next to impossible. Where you have a street tire, here's your line, and then you start going past it, you just start sliding a bit. You aren't screwed yet, right?
Right.
It's great for learning. So, but again, you want to set lap times, start going fast. Tires are so important. It's everything, right? You can have power, you can have brakes and everything. If the tires aren't there, you can't do it, right? Plain and simple.
Now, do you guys have a winter course as well?
We usually do some stuff up at Minden. This year we didn't because COVID just killed everything.
Yeah.
But usually we do a couple of the days up in Minden on the ice track.
Okay.
So we'll go up there and we'll teach people about car control and have fun and slide around at 20 kilometers an hour on the ice, and it's so much fun. Yeah,
that's where I learned is just empty parking spaces, and that's how I learned oversteer, understeer in winter conditions. So I'm not sacrificing brakes and tires. I'm just literally having fun, but you learn so much just by playing. Yeah. And it's crazy. Then you know exactly what to look for in the cars that you're driving. I mean, in my case, I drive multiple here and there, but even in your own car, when you're driving it through the summer, you'll learn as soon as you start feeling a little bit of that limit starting to like go when you're going on ramp, like, okay, I know it's there. I got to ease off a little bit, right? Yep. No, that's a really good point because you can't replace experience. No. So it's like you said, you go out and you play with it and go, oh, that's understeer. Oh, it's oversteer. As long as you do it in a safe way, like I said, that's king, right? Yeah. So, the best mod is a driver's mod. 100%. Right? Because I 100%. Can't, and I'm assuming you've seen the same thing. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, for example, I have a friend who loves go-karting, who is, his goal this year is to take his S2000, and his is, it's not stock, but the engine is. Right. So it's still a natural aspirated 2 liter. It's the AP1. AP1, yeah. And he wants to crack, I think, 119. Yeah. And I think he's running a 120 or 121 on an S2. Yeah. Which is crazy because then you mentioned your 4C, you ran a 119. I'm like, that's pretty close. I mean, still seconds away. Yeah. Right. But it's, the best mod is a driver's mod because you'll have, I've seen guys get, in a GTR on the DDT track getting overtaken by guys that are just like, wait, that's like a third of the power. Yeah. But they're still getting blown away. Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. So if you don't know how to drive, I think that's a great and wise investment, and especially on a day-to-day basis, because it'll make you a better driver during the day. 100%. It'll make you more aware of your surroundings. Yes. And situational awareness is everything, whether it's street driving, track driving, and we teach that specifically in the course, right? Right. What that is, how to work on it, how to apply it. So that's a great point, right? And but even the driver mod, like you said, that is everything, right? Whether it's being safe, whether it's being fast, whether it's being consistent, because that's part of racing too. Yeah. And it's all down to the driver. Because I mean, you can be given like the perfect track weapon, but if you don't know how to wield it,
well, what's the point, right? Like, if I give you a pistol, but you don't know how a pistol works, well, it's not a weapon anymore, is it?
Yeah, can't take it apart, can't reload it, can't do anything like that. Right?
Literally, yeah. So it's the exact same thing. Like one of our guys on our team, with Pada, one of our instructors, he's autocross champion more times than probably anybody can count. And he's well renowned in the driving community. So he, like, you throw him in any car, it's just phenomenal the way he can drive. I mean, he's run for years in a bone stock NA Miata, like the NA meaning generation, but naturally aspirated as well. Just basically like tires, and that's kind of it. And like, he's won so many championships in that car, it's a joke. And he's putting down times in autocross better than real drivers in good cars too. The guy is just like magic, right? And that's a perfect example of that. Like, it's just his driving skill is just uncanny. Like, he's like the Ayrton Senna of like autocross, and he's still good on track, doing it wrong, but like, he's just kind of really cut his teeth in autocross. And, and again, like, I'm a very accomplished driver, I have some experience, but still every time I see him drive, it's still just like, wow, that guy's freaking good. Like, it's just, it's very cool and inspirational, but it just proves your point that when you really know what you're doing, like
it changes the game.
That changes the game. Like, now you throw him in a really good car, and then game over for everybody
and a track
else.
Weapon.
Yeah, exactly. But and that's what it's about. And it's more fun that way, because it's not fun when you go out and you're fighting with the car and you're getting frustrated and you're not getting whatever results you're looking for, But when you learn how to drive, you can go out and have fun. You can do it safely too. You're not going to spin out every track day. Because that's the thing. If you're driving something like a really nice Porsche GT3, you don't want to spin it in the weeds and DB the tire. Not a big deal, but still,
right.
You're at Motorsport GP and you put it in the wall and write it off. Like, nobody wants to do that to a $300,000 car. But again, if you know what you're doing, you can go out and have fun and knock on wood, you bring your car home.
Right.
In one piece.
Well, you also mentioned track weapon, and I'm assuming a Porsche is going to be on there. I don't know, but do you have the top 3? And that's a hard question, just because I know you've been exposed to a lot of seat time in a lot of different cars. But do you have a top 3 for track weapon? And I don't know how to categorize it, whether it's best track time or most fun or what have you. But you're just top 3.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways you can classify that. I mean,
right.
The way I always look at it, I really enjoy stuff like the GT3 RS, because it's still not a purpose-built race car. It still is a road car, right? At the end of the day, so there has to be some compromises built into it. But with the modern cars, it's so cool the way they make them still so much like a race car, like the GT3 RS being kind of the typical example, of course, because you drive one, and it's just the engine, the transmission, the way it goes through corners, like it feels like a race car, but it's still not a race car. It's still a road car at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even feel like a sports car. It does feel still more like a race car. Now the Camaro's the one, same thing. It's like that. So I would say, running off that kind of criteria, I guess like a street legal race road car. Because I would say like the GT3 RS has always been a bucket list car. Unfortunately, it slid on my budget. Otherwise, I would have bought that instead of the Camaro. But one day, still, we'll see if I can get one. So GT3 RS for track cars is kind of right up there on top of my list, obviously. The Camaro actually has been one of the ones I've always respected and always lusted after since I first drove one years ago. So
Wow.
I'm very happy that I was able to get one now. Because again, it's that like the GT3 RS. It's a road car, but still very race car like.
Right.
So it's cool.
The stiffness does actually. You don't have too much. You haven't sat in it enough to know if it's stiff, like way too stiff.
The Camaro?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've driven them on the road and everything too.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. So
you don't mind how stiff they are, because I know that they're probably one of the stiffest cars I've ever driven in my life.
They're pretty bad, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, it's still way better than the 4C, right? Because the 4C is almost as stiff,
Really?
but it's like a 2,300 pound carbon tub. So every bump you come over, it just feels like the car's going to fall apart. Like, it's so lightweight. The Camaro at least has the mass behind it, so
Right.
it feels like it dampens it better somehow.
Right,
It's kind of hard to explain, but either way, like, it's still not the best daily driver.
No.
But it's my track toy, so like I'll do the odd cruise with it, I suppose. But most of the time, it's driving it to the track, having my fun, and driving it home. So it is what it is, right?
Right.
Again, I have a nice daily I can drive every day if I want to be comfortable. It's fine, right?
Right.
But no, so like I would say the GT3 RS, the Camaro, and then the other car I would absolutely love if budget allowed would be the Viper ACR. Like, that thing is still like top of my list. That's probably, if I had the choice out of the 3 and money was an object, I think I would go with the Viper, because it's funny because like you mentioned Viper earlier, and you drive the other Vipers. They're very good sports cars. On track, they're pretty good. You usually need a pretty decent alignment. Otherwise, they're kind of a little wonky. But they still feel like big, heavy sports cars. Like, they're fun, they're cool. But you drive an ACR, and like, you swear to God, it's not a Viper. It feels like a friggin' Hyper Miata or something. Like the handling characteristics are
It's
dramatically different. And yet it's funny because even if you go up to the Viper, was it the TI, I believe, which is the one below the ACR. I think it's called TA if I remember correctly. Like that's supposed to be the more tracky version of the Viper, if you will.
Right.
And even that one still feels like a Viper that's just been kind of tuned a bit.
Right.
It's good, but you know what I mean? It's heavy, it's a little awkward. And but the ACR doesn't feel like that at all. And that's why I remember the first time I drove one, I was shocked. Because I'd driven all the other iterations, before, and I'm okay, ACR is just a faster version of this.
Right.
And then no, like first corner, you huck it in, you're like, this.
Well, it's got a lot of downforce, a lot of canards.
It does.
It does have a lot going for it.
Yep. But the funny thing is, it's not even that. The first time I drove one was actually at Cayuga. So no downforce happening there really. And even through a tight infield section, the car is just very light and nimble. It just like rotated beautifully, puts the power down better than the other Vipers. Like, and mechanically, it's not a world of difference between the other Vipers and the ACR. But like, it felt like a completely different car, and that's why I was shocked.
Right.
So I spent the whole day getting to mess around with it at TMP, and like by the end of the day, I was like, this thing is incredible. And the lap times you could put that thing are just like mind-numbingly stupid.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a race car. It's still technically street legal. Like it's built like a race car, but you know what I mean? It's not like a Radical or something like that where it's a race car, right?
Right.
So yeah, like it was just, and it was actually fun to drive. Like the Vipers, not that they're not fun, but they're not like that special or that engaging. They're just cool. The ACR was a hoot. Like I had so much fun driving it. Like I couldn't believe it. So I was like, if I could afford one, that would be my number one for sure.
That's a good list. So it's primarily North American.
Which is weird because I'm not a domestic guy. That's why I started telling people too that know me. I'm like, bought a Camaro. And they're like, no, for real, what'd you get? And I'm like, Camaro. But the funny thing is I've been telling like my family and stuff. Like, I'm like, no, I bought a ZL1 1LE. And they're like, oh, what's that? Like, aren't car people, right? And I'm like, it's I don't want to use the C word, but it's a Camaro. And they're like, you bought a Camaro? Like, what the heck? They're like you've owned Porsches and stuff, and you bought a Camaro?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, but hear me out before you judge me. Like,
yeah. And then you got to go into the spiel. And yeah.
No, the new 6th gen platform, the chassis is really good, and then the 1LE is special. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just whatever, have fun with it.
And what's your daily?
I have a 2018 Mercedes C300.
Nice.
Yeah.
Coupe or sedan?
Coupe.
Hard to find.
Yeah, they're kind of rare. One of the reasons I kind of got it. I like having kind of more rare cars, as you can tell by
I was just going to say, you do like your oddballs.
I do, yeah.
But like the good oddball. I don't know if that's looked at a bad thing, but no.
Yeah.
I like my kind of different type of vehicles, but
yeah,
I myself am primarily German and Japanese.
I was going to say, speaking of cars, like I know you have the S2000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, let's speaking of
have you driven one?
Oh, many times. Yeah. Modded stock ones, everything. But and to be honest, for fun factor, it's still right near the top of my list.
Really?
Yeah. Out of everything I've ever driven, I'm talking like supercars, everything. Cause, very much like the 4C, it's very raw. It's very engaging. I mean, obviously, like the engine alone is a very special piece of the car. Yes. Have that super high revving 4-banger and you're just getting pulled to the seat more and more. The RPMs climb it. It's a very, especially nowadays, a very unique experience when everything's turbocharged, right?
Yep.
Or nowadays electric, actually.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, let's ignore that one. But no, like the S2000 is a very special car. Like when that car came out, I don't think everybody fully appreciated it was. I think just because of the price point. But thing is too, and what you had mentioned with your friend earlier about trying to crack the TMP time with his, it's a car that with the right driver, like it's a lot faster than it should be, which is kind of very much what Honda and the Type R badge has kind of always done through history, always punches above its weight class. Right. The S2000 isn't a Type R, but the point is it still follows that ethos that on paper you're like, it should do this, but in the hands of a good driver, you're like, well, whoa, this is like more than just the sum of the parts. Like, how did it do a lap time? How did it do that? And this 2000 is very much a car like that. And the best thing is it puts a huge smile on your face while doing it. And that's what makes that car so special.
Well, it's the engine placement, right? Like, it's technically mid-engine because
front mid-engine, yep.
Right, front mid-engine. So the whole front end is just emptiness, right? Yeah. And it's still small but bigger than a Miata. It's got it. I love the way it looks. I love everything about
it's very classic styling.
And here's a good one for you. Do you think that the key to true happiness would be, I mean, everybody at the end of the day wants a fast car and whatnot, but when you've experienced it all, would you agree that it's not the trick to have a fast car? It's to have a car that feels fast. Because I find that when my wife came back from her cottage the first night, I wanted to take her out in it.
Yeah.
And we started driving it, and just down the road, she's like, babe, slow down. I was like, why? She's like, you're doing it. And she looks, I'm only doing 40. And she's like, oh.
Yeah, because the sound of the engine and everything, you're like, oh my God, you're flying.
Yeah. And she's like, I thought you were doing like 65. And I'm like, no. Like, it's just the way it feels. And even when I'm cruising on the highway, I feel like everyone's passing me. I'm like, is everyone going 160? And then I look down, I'm like, oh, 120.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. But no, it's exactly, it's the experience, right? Like the car feels fast, it's engaging, it's exciting, it's the sounds, it's the feel. I mean, this car, the wind in your hair. And you know, at the end of the day, that's same as me. That's why I bought the 4C. Like I said, for that kind of money when I bought it, I could have bought a way faster car.
Right.
Like, there's so many choices. But they don't do that kind of delivery of the experience, just like this 2000. Same thing. Where, I mean, you know, for the money, especially brand new, those things were expensive. You could buy a way faster car.
And they're still stupid. They're going up now. It's
I know it's ridiculous, but there's a reason for that. That's the thing, and that's what we're talking
people
about.
are realizing
What a special car it is and how unique it is, and the smile it puts in your face. Because I mean, at the end of the day, everybody wants something different out of their car, and that's what makes the car world fun. Some people just like the look. Some people want it to be stanced out. Some people want to go fast. Some people just want the experience. Like it, you know, and that's what makes it fun. That there's so many, especially nowadays. There's a lot of cool stuff out there right now, right? Like, so, and the S2000 is, you know, a very special car from a time kind of almost forgotten, right? Like the high revving engine, naturally aspirated, and one of the best 6-speed manuals out there, period, ever made. Like, you know, it was
it's almost gated.
Oh, it's beautiful. And the way it just snicks into gear, and the throw is perfect, and the clutch is nice. And even like, you know, like the way the car rotates and balances itself, like it's just everything about the car is a true driver's experience. It just talks to you and works with you, right? It's like a ballet around the track.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So, you know, Honda really created something special with that. And that's what makes that car so cool. And the cool thing, let's face it, it's kind of bulletproof. Like, you know, you can track the snot out of it, rev 9,000 RPM all day, and the car takes it and you know, puts a smile on your face in the process, and you're done, right? It's so I mean, it's really cool you got that. I've always wanted to get an S2000. It's just never worked out, timing and budget and various other things. But
yeah,
it's a cool car.
I got it after things have kind of settled down after the first wave of COVID, I guess you could call it. And then I told myself, if I get out of this and then we're okay with all the things that went down, I'm gonna get it, which I did. So I'm glad that I did. It's an AP2. It's an 08, one of the last years, and I think 08 and 09 were the hardest ones to find because they've significantly lowered the production, especially for 09.
Yes,
but no, I love that car. It's and I'm still torn. Like I took it to Cayuga actually. And she was very, very squirrely just because it's got eagles on the tires. So it was owned by a corporate guy, right? And nothing against the guy, but he just bought it to just enjoy it for a little bit here and there, right?
Just driving the street and stuff.
Right. So I know I want to put some stickier, you know, softer compound tires on, but you know, am I going to upgrade brakes? Do I want to lower it? Do I want to put an intake on it?
Slippery slope, my friend.
I know, but you know what? It's so hard to find them unmolested, but it's so hard not to touch it because it's just, I can make you look and sound so much better, but...
Absolutely, I know. You're stuck in the middle. You're going, geez, what do I do?
So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but yeah, the next car on my horizon, I think if I'm going to be adding a third would be the 350R.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the people that know me, when they say, wait, you want a Mustang? It's insanity. But I mean, I went through this with my brother the other day, and we're talking about what cars we would have in our garage. Mine is primarily Japanese, just because of how reliable they are, how great they sound, how timeless they look, how great they look.
Yes.
And the fact that they don't have to be fast so you can enjoy them. The experience that they provide you is
what matters.
Good enough.
Yes.
Right? So, and that's with the 350R. It'll annoy a lot of people just by turning it on. But also, you know, the Recaros, the shifter, the little, you know, switches inside, and then, like you said, the engine.
Yes.
Right?
And the engine makes that car. It's magic.
So that's my goal at least, but...
it's a good goal. It's a good goal. I fully support that goal. And again, from another, like, you know, non-domestic car guy to, you know, it's the same thing. Like I said, the Camaro for me was, 5 years ago, you're going to buy a Camaro from now. I'd be like, whatever, dude, like dream on. Like, come on. Like, and again, the 6th gen Camaro is a very good sports car, and I recognize that too, but I'm still like, I don't want a Camaro.
Yeah.
But once you start experiencing some of the stuff that's coming down, like, you know, Ford and GM and some other guys now, it's like, no, this is like a really good car. Like, it's engaging. Even the interiors, like, I have to admit, like, even the Mustang, it's still not the nicest interior in the world, no, but it's still a nice place to be.
Right.
And same with the Camaro. I remember I was sitting in it. We were filming at Safe Auto in Oakville, where my car is stored right now, and we were doing some filming for the channel. So at the end of the day, I went and kind of sat in the car for a minute because I'm like just dying to get it out. And I'm sitting in the car looking around and going, this is actually like a nice interior. Like, it's a Camaro, it's a GM product, but like, the fit and finish is pretty good. Like it feels kind of nicer and classy. It's like not as nice as my Mercedes, but you're still like, wow, like this isn't like it used to be.
It's not plastic. It's not a Hot Wheel toy anymore.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the Shelby's the same way. Like it's a nice place to be actually when you're sitting there. It's like I said, in the handling, they actually corner good now. They got good brakes on them. I mean, they never had problems with engines per se. They always made power, but now you can actually use the power around a road course. So it's a very compelling argument. And like I said, in the Shelby, and this is one of the things that was making me so torn, is because, again, like we talked about the engine, you'll never, ever, ever be able to get a high revving V8 naturally aspirated like performance thing like that ever again, really.
No. I know it's going to become something that's going to be highly sought after, and eventually, instead of it doing this, it'll start doing this.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing that you touch on, is I think that every enthusiast, even though for those who can actually kind of be self-aware and tell themselves, I'm biased towards X, Y, and Z brand. And if they can get some seat time in other cars and other brands and kind of get exposed, that's where they can truly get surprised. Because for one, I'm not a domestic guy. I'm not a fan of American, but more and more are piling on my list now. And I'm like, shit, like, what do I do? Because I'm known as Japanese and German, but now one of my dream cars is now a Mustang, which am not just,
you're sitting there going like, wait, did I just say that?
Yeah. So
but it's true. Like I said, like we're actually living in a time where there's a lot of really cool sports car offerings out there from everywhere, right? Like, American, Japanese, European, doesn't matter. There's some really cool stuff. But I think this is going to be the last wave for, in my opinion anyway, I mean, right or wrong, true and car enthusiasts, where we're going to have to, because we're
going electric.
Yeah. And I mean, again, through my job, I've driven all the Teslas and all the new stuff coming down the pipe. And I mean, straight line, they're ridiculous. You can't even breathe half the time you're accelerating. It's pretty cool stuff. But around a road course, they'll still put down a good lap time with some minor tuning and a little bit of suspension. And there's examples out there already of that, like the Model 3s and Slash Annis and other people. But it's, again, like for me, and not everybody agrees with me, but it's the experience. That's what I really want out of a car 9 times out of 10. And the EVs do not deliver that at all. Like
for now.
True.
Now.
But I still don't see it doing that anytime soon. I could be wrong.
It's hard because you know what? I'm curious to see what the new Tesla Roadster is going to be like, because it's supposed to be something that's mind blowing on the track as well. But at the end of the day, I find that the GTR, the Nissan, like the R35 GTR, started it all. Like the horsepower wars, which then led into electric. Yeah. Because prior to that, everything was raw, not as electric, not as everything.
The GTR was the first Gran Turismo car that came out. Like, and by Gran Turismo, I mean it doesn't feel like you're really driving the car. The car kind of is driving itself in a sense.
And it's got higher output of horsepower, especially if you look into the AMS Alpha GTRs and so on and so forth. And that's where people are like, you know what, maybe we should start adding more power. So to see a new car like the 350R not have as much horsepower as the Camaros and the GT500, for example, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But it's still so highly kind of, sought after. It's nice. It's a breath of fresh air.
Absolutely.
In today's day and age with horsepower wars going on. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because like I said, the Camaro supercharged, makes tons of torque. I mean, everything's hybrid now, and even the Tesla Roadster. Well, a good example is the new the Porsche Taycan, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I've driven one of those in track, and it's interesting. The handling of it is just really good. I have to admit, shockingly good. Yeah. And I mean, this thing's like 5,000 plus pounds, if I remember correctly. Like it's like it's a house you're driving down the track. It kind of feels heavy. It kind of doesn't. Like you feel the weight, but it's pretty agile for its weight. So it's kind of like So it does feel like a Porsche in that sense. Like around the track, it feels very good. The brakes work good. Like it's very sporty. And I mean, the acceleration is bonkers. Of course, it's EV. But again, when you drive it, like it's not like I go, wow, like get out and you're just tingling and going, wow, like I get more excited driving an S2000 around track and pushing that and rowing the gears and keeping the RPMs up, and it's an experience and it's very engaging. Where the Porsche, you just mat it, bounce it to the corner, like the sound isn't there, you're not really rewarded, like it's not the same, And again, some people I'm sure don't agree with that. That's cool.
And downloading a soundtrack of an engine won't fix that.
I know, that's what I mean. Like, because the cool thing with the S2000, let's face it, like with the high RPM engine, you have to work to keep the RPMs up all the time around the track, right? If you want to make it move. Right. That's part of the experience. You have to work and you have to earn that lap time, right? And then, especially in the AP1s, everybody complains about the back end being so squirrely and losing control. Well, that's good, because then again, when you're going through a corner, you have to balance the car. You have to do it right. And it's not that you can't. Like, it's not like an impossible car to drive.
Versus a computer doing it for you.
That's it. Like a GTR. Like, you just put it in track mode, mat it through a corner, and like all the modern McLarens are like that. Like, you can get the average driver in a McLaren. They'll do a 115 at TMP in a McLaren. Like, and you're like, and you watch the guy driving and you're going, wow, like you don't know what you're doing. But because the car is so good now, when you put it like in the track mode, the car will save you in the corners. It'll balance the car. It'll do everything for you.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy's like, yeah, look, I'm fast. Like, and I'm sitting there in the passenger seat, like coaching the guy and going like, dude, you're not. Like, tell you what, turn everything off and try to duplicate that 150 and let's see what happens. You're going to crash in the first corner. I guarantee it. Like,
yeah,
100%.
I'd be terrified to take a McLaren out on a racetrack because all I could think about is, 600K. What am I doing?
Yeah, that happens sometimes when I take clients' cars out. They're like, here, go show me what this will do. And I'm like, okay. What happens if I put it in a well? But at the end of the day, I've realized like, once you start learning how to drive, I mean, driving is driving. Like, honestly, I find a stock Miata is no different than a McLaren in terms of the way they drive. I mean, it is, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But like understeer, oversteer. You just have to learn, what makes this car turn? How does it behave under braking? How much power can you put down? After 2 laps, you figure it out, and then whatever, right? Like, and it's driving is driving. So the McLaren is a little bit faster than the Miata, just a bit. But like, it's not like it's like, wow, I can drive a Miata 10 tenths, but then I can't drive the McLaren 10 tenths. It's not really like that. Like, once you know how to understand the limit of a car, that's the way it is.
Right.
Unless you have something like with some weird setup with the car's got some really weird quirks, which I've driven sometimes, but. It's just you have to be a little more careful because when you make a mistake, the speed is going to amplify that mistake. That's the only real big thing.
Of course.
But I mean, that being said, funny enough, though, the McLarens, though, even though they do have those really good systems, I have to admit, they're still a very good driver's car for a modern supercar because a lot of them are, I find nowadays, to be honest. Most modern supercars, they're ridiculously fast, but they're too easy to drive and they aren't really an engaging experience. The McLarens still are, though. I love driving McLarens on track. They still feel very raw, very pure. That they have that good steering feel.
Well, it's because of engine placement, I think. Because they're at the very, very obviously they're at the very, very back. But instead of your traditional, okay, let's work on it from the top.
Yeah.
Even if they're changing the oil, I'm pretty sure they have to put it on a hoist and drop the engine because it's mounted right. Yeah, they're mounted at the very, very back, so you get that perfect weight distribution. With that weight just very, very low.
I'm sure that's part of it too. Absolutely.
Oh, there's more. Way more factors.
Way more than we know, obviously.
It's like the Rolls-Royce comfort level of a track car as well. That's another thing. Like when I was with Chris Green in McLaren Toronto, he's like, I think we were in I forget what we were in. I want to say it's a 570. And he said, hit that speed bump doing 60.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, seriously, I don't want to no, I wouldn't do that in my car, let alone a McLaren. He's like, no, shut up, do it. And then I do it. It just,
yeah. And you're like, what the heck? You're like, am I driving like a Lexus or like a pickup truck? Yeah. And then around the track, you put it in track mode and it's phenomenal too.
Stiff.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
exactly.
insanity.
And it'll like rattle your teeth out, right? But the modern like suspension systems are ridiculous that way, right? Like it's again technology, right?
Yeah.
It's scary stuff nowadays.
Colin, my friend, we have run out of time. Cool. But last minute, do you want to plug anything while we're finishing up?
Well, yeah, sure. So I guess first of all, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and chat with another cool car guy. I love that.
Yeah.
And get to share my crazy points of view with everybody.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And then obviously again, Pinnacle Advanced Driving Academy. So again, we specialize in getting people on track and getting into the world of performance driving. So anybody out there that has a sports car and ever wanted to get on track or any form of motorsports, obviously that's what we specialize in. Come out, lots of courses and stuff. Check us out on Facebook or website, Pinnacle Advanced Driving Academy. We have courses for beginners all the way through to advanced time attack, like competitors, everything in between. We have a good roster of instructors who are all champions in different fields of motorsports, so they can show you some stuff for sure. Everybody come out and do that, part of our PATA family. And I guess the other thing is, check out Track Attack Canada on YouTube. It's our new thing we started up this season. We have 6 episodes of our premier show.
Nice.
We're filming a little interim show to get us through the winter before we start season 2 of Track Attack. We're in Safe Auto, which is a car storage facility in Oakville. They store some of the freaking coolest cars you can imagine, and we're doing little tiny review clips, just kind of being up and close personal reviews of these cars, like 3 to 5 minute clips.
Yeah.
We were filming a Ford GT the other day, for example, like one of the old ones, like the 2005 2006 ones.
Oh, even those.
Super cool. Yeah. We have a bunch of other really special cars coming up. I can't say too much right now, but some really neat stuff. So check that out, and you can kind of get up and close and personal with some of these cars, and I'll share some of my opinions on them and the quirks about them. It's fun stuff. So check that out, and I guess obviously like and subscribe this channel, and make sure you keep checking out the other cool guests that'll be coming out.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Thanks so much for having me out. Appreciate it.
All right. Cheers. Take care, guys.